Hey guys, it's Heather here with Underwater Panther, and I am expanding on my masculine and feminine polarities through the toxic and healthy and integrated versions series here on YouTube. So I'm very much so deep diving into the masculine and feminine. My prior two videos were about patriarchy and how you can see that in multiple areas of our lives through dating, engagement, marriage, work life, parenting, and our everyday lifestyle. And so this video is going to be a more cosmic, cultural, planetary, the macro and the micro. So we're going to break down a lot here to do with alchemy and integration, native wisdom, and dialectical inversion. So science, since the beginning of our time, humans have asked one central question: how do we live in balance? Not just with the land or with each other, but with the very forces that pulls within us, the masculine and the feminine. Ancient cultures knew this balance well. They told stories of sky father and earth mother, of sun and moon, of yin and yang. Native traditions lived by the medicine wheel, where masculine and feminine spiraled together through the four directions. Alchemists in Egypt, China, and Europe taught the 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 sacred marriage of opposites, as the secret of turning lead into gold, or more truly, turning chaos into wholeness. But history took a turn. The rise of patriarchal religion exalted the masculine as law and authority while reducing the feminine to purity or sin. The scientific revolution redefined the earth as a dead machine, stripping her of spirit. The industrial age commodified nature as resource and people as labor. Government and media learned to weaponize our polarities, keeping us divided through inversion. Domination posing as strength, and victimhood posing as compassion. What was once sacred integration became fragmentation. This video is about healing that fracture. We'll trace the journey from natural wisdom into distortion, from ancient teachings to modern dysfunction, and uncover the patterns of toxic masculine, toxic feminine, and integrated balance within. So I have 7 sections I am going to be deep diving on. The planetary logos, how Earth and the human nervous system mirror each other. Alchemy and integration, how the ancients used polarity to transform and how we turned it into control. Jung's stages of transformation, the psychological roadmap of descent, purification, union, and wholeness. Native wisdom, how indigenous cultures embodied balance in family, governance, and ecology. False alchemy, how religion, occult orders, and governments inverted sacred polarity into tools of control. Gnosticism, Marxism, and simulation, how philosophies that reject creation or flatten identity pull us into unreality. And then we will end with dialectical inversion, how modern culture keeps us trapped in endless polarity wars instead of synthesis. This moth has been flying around like crazy. I have my big bay door open here. I can see the stars and the moon, and that's just like how I like to roll. So at every stage, we'll look at 7 examples of how these energies show up today: the toxic masculine that dominates, the toxic feminine that manipulates, and the integrated balance that heals. This is not just theory, it's personal, because balancing masculine and feminine inside of you is not only how you heal yourself, it's how families thrive, how culture renews, and how even Earth herself can find coherence again. By the end of this video, you'll see the real alchemy doesn't erase polarity, it transfigures it. Real balance doesn't enslave, it liberates. And the work begins right here with you. Close your eyes. Imagine standing barefoot in the grass. Your heart beats, your breath flows, and you feel the pulse of the earth herself under your feet. Now zoom out. You see rivers like veins, mountains like bones, forests like lungs. Earth is alive, and you are one cell in her vast body. Ancient peoples knew this. They honored the balance of masculine and feminine as a part of the cosmic design. But somewhere in history, this truth was buried, replaced with systems of control, inverted teachings, and fractured families. Today, we'll trace how it unfolded, from natural wisdom to distorted culture, and how to reclaim the integration we lost. So section 1, we have planetary logos, the macro versus the micro. Long before cities, humans watched the skies and saw patterns in the stars. The aura was understood as the breath of the planet. Rivers were arteries, forests the hair of earth, mountains her bones. In Egypt, Greece, India, and the Americas, the world was not dead matter, but a living logos, a cosmic mind. Historically, indigenous traditions all over the world spoke of Mother Earth and Father Sky, the archetypal feminine and masculine. Native Americans honored the medicine wheel as a map of balance. The Vedas described Purusha, cosmic masculine, and Prakriti, cosmic feminine, as inseparable. But then came a shift. In Europe, mechanistic science of the 1600s, Descartes and Newton, framed Earth as a machine, not matter. The church elevated God the Father and demonized the feminine principle, casting Earth and women alike as fallen. The Industrial Revolution reinforced this view. Nature becomes resource, humans become labor. The logos was forgotten. Scientific frame. Earth's magnetosphere shields life from solar radiation. Humans generate electromagnetic fields from our heart and brain. Both act as protective fields of order, encoding memory and rhythm. Neuroscience shows trauma reshapes the nervous system. Earth's ecosystems record collective trauma and disrupted weather patterns, extinctions, and soil chemistry. As a farmer with a lot of native blood in me, this really truly is a very, very, probably my most important lecture that I am ever going to do. I feel this so deeply in myself. Think of the planet as a body with nerves, scars, and resilience. The magnetosphere is like the brain's protective meninges, buffering cosmic radiation. When solar storms intensify, Earth's field wobbles, just like your nervous system floods under stress. The Schumann, perhaps, the Schumann or Schumann resonance, Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat, synchronizes with human brainwaves. This means personal regulation through breath, grounding, emotional balance doesn't just help you, it entrains with planetary fields. If individuals stay dysregulated, families, communities, and eventually cultures mirror that chaos. Masculine imbalance at this level looks like exploitation and domination. Feminine imbalance looks like helplessness or dependence. Integration means harmonizing human rhythms with planetary ones. I can't say that word. Reciprocity with nature. Reciprocity with nature. I'm speaking in another language. Like, I've initiated into this, like, very deep. I am moving some extremely deep energy within myself through my native blood, through my childhood trauma, through the wounded feminine within myself. I've been doing a lot of meditation and I've just spent a lot of time on integrating some very, very, very deep emotional things lately, and I'm speaking in another language, and here I am tripping up on an English word. It cracks me up. Reciprocity with nature, regulation, and body, stewardship, and culture. So now we're going to go into 7 examples of the toxic feminine, toxic masculine, and integration. Toxic masculinity, 7 examples encompassing the planetary logos. So toxic masculinity here. Extracting oil, minerals, forest with no thought for renewal. Governments enforcing harsh laws without compassion. Fathers dominating households without emotional warmth. Militarism that conquers instead of protecting. Religious dogma suppressing the feminine principle. Corporate leaders treating workers as expendable. Science used for weapons or profit without ethics. Toxic feminine within the planetary logos. Collective helplessness, we're doomed, nothing can change. Emotional manipulation to gain control. Smothering children so they never gain independence. Gossip that fractures community bonds. Avoidance of responsibility through blame. Dependence on state government to rescue without self-effort. I went into a very long deep dive today prior to writing this script on the current state of the indigenous populations left here in America, and I have gone, I know I'm side tangenting, I apologize, but it's very important to myself in this work. It's just so sad, the poverty that a lot of the Navajo, a lot of the Native Americans are living in to this current day. They are extremely stubborn. They're very isolated, and a lot of them don't have electricity or water. Some of that's by choice, some of it's not by choice. And just the current state of that is so heart-wrenching. So heart-wrenching. I've cried so much in the last 3 days. Like, I had a great aunt that passed away back in March on my Native American side, and I spent 2 to 3 months or so building out my genealogy, my family tree, 11 generations back on that side. I've been estranged. My mother was not a mother. So I have a very deep feminine wound, but the way that I have integrated that in my life is when I was 4 years old, I made a promise to myself that I will never be what happens to me ever. Regardless of what happens in my life, I'm never going to be what has happened to me, and I will be that light for others. I am entirely self-taught with every single thing that I am teaching here. I have been doing this work for a very long time, since I was 4 years old. And I just... yeah, so I finally today I was watching some Navajo teachings, and I decided to crack open my tree on my Native American side again and try to figure out how to get my heritage cards. I have 4 to 5. The 5th one would be hard. I have 4 different tribes actually that I'm connected to, and 2 of them for sure I can get heritage cards. And it's not just about the heritage cards. I truly, deeply in my bones and spirit want to reconnect with those teachings and people, and perhaps at some point visit them. And so I finally figured out how to get all the paperwork that I need. I'm mailing out 6 different letters to get certifications, like proper certifications of birth certificates. I have some, but not all. Just to dive myself into the Native American side of myself. It is something that has been so very deep within me. I'm extremely connected to the earth because of being a farmer. I am so connected with the cycles, the seasons. I've incorporated that with personality types now, and I plan on doing this work for the rest of my entire life. This is my sole purpose, and so I will probably, I'm not sure. I'm going to expand this series out quite a bit. I know I've been focusing on Aquarius very, very deeply. That is my mind. It's my thinking and communication. It's the age of Aquarius. That's another reason why I really want to hammer on that personality. But stuff like this is so important to get back in tune with our own nature, with Mother Earth, with all of the things I'm talking about here. It is on every level. It's just been absolutely destroyed. And I resonate so deeply with the Native Americans. And I just deeply feel for them. So keep them in your heart, keep them in your mind. I cried and cried. I came across this video by random. This chief was talking about how they built their homes, and the structure of these homes, it looks like an eagle's nest, like flipped upside down. And so it's like circular, and they literally build it like an eagle's nest. And I had this moment where I had a flashback back to when I was like 7 years old. I was taken away from my mother when I was 4 years old, and I didn't speak to anyone until I was like 6. Like, I had a lot to process, and I literally, for some reason, I loved climbing trees. I climbed trees every single day. I climbed up this tree and I made my own eagle's nest. It took me like 3 days. I took branches and just kept wrapping them and wrapping them and wrapping them. And I made this huge eagle's nest, and I would just sit up there all day and just think about life and, what it means, and really just sat with myself for a very long time. And that building of their home that looked like an eagle's nest, and he even said eagle's nest, just the freaking appreciation they have for the earth, for women, for their own masculine and feminine, everything about Native Americans. They truly love themselves. They truly love the earth. I've never seen anyone so grateful. And I have that heart, I have that spirit, I have that blood. And so that is where I'm coming to you from. And so a lot of that has been lost. A lot of these teachings and information has been lost. It's never been taught in schools. You're never going to learn in school who you are as an individual human being, like how to understand yourself, like religion, you name it. None of this information is going to be taught. And so since I was 4 years old, I've just been going on this absolute rampage of studying every single religion, every culture, every spiritual tradition, everything. I study every single day. So this is like a huge amalgamation of everything I've like studied up until this point. So I just thank you so much for being here. That is where I come from, and I just pray to goodness that I can build a community here of like-minded people, because it's needed now more than ever. That was a huge side tangent. I do apologize. The dependence on state government is such an issue on so many different levels. But that is a toxic feminine trait. We just, by any means necessary, every single one of us has got to get away from the government, the federal government especially. All right, so, and how we do that is we tell our own stories and we teach the old ways. All right, so the seventh example of toxic feminine with the planetary logos is, we're on feminine. Seventh example for the planetary logos is comfort seeking over resilience and growth. So integration here with the planetary macro and micro logos. Families where mothers and fathers co-lead with respect. Communities honoring reciprocity with nature. Governments balancing justice with compassion. Leaders serving instead of dominating. And the reason that we're in this state today is we lack leadership. We lack leadership on all levels. There's the leadership. We wouldn't have as much crime and violence and poverty and homelessness if we had true freaking leaders were leading like where they need to be. All right, and then technology guided by ecological wisdom. Religions uplifting both masculine and feminine archetypes. Cultures where men and women co-lead as complementary forces. Now we're going to move on to section 2, alchemy, integration versus control. An alchemist watches Mercury dance and iron sit still. He doesn't discard one for the other. He holds both until their polarity fuses into something stronger. Alchemy was never just about metals. It was about the soul. Historically, Egyptian, Taoist, and medieval mystics all describe the same union of opposites. Mercury, volatile, with sulfur, stable, masculine and feminine. Sun with moon, but in Europe by the 17th century, alchemy was split. One branch became material chemistry, the other secret societies hoarding its wisdom. What was once medicine for soul became either science stripped of spirit or cult knowledge used for control. Scientific frame. Biology runs on polarity. The autonomic nervous system has two halves. Sympathetic, mobilization, which is masculine, and parasympathetic, rest and repair, which is feminine. Both are vital. Neuroscience shows resilience comes not from always being calm or always being strong, but from flexibility. Moving between modes in balance. Stress response is not bad, it's essential. Sympathetic activation mobilizes courage, protection, and clarity. But unchecked, it becomes aggression, rigidity, and burnout. Parasympathetic rest allows creativity, digestion, and bonding. But unchecked, it becomes apathy, chaos, and avoidance. Healthy humans oscillate fluidly between them, like breath between inhale and exhale. Culturally, the same applies. Societies need order, masculine, and adaptability, feminine. Too much order equals authoritarianism. Too much flow equals chaos. True alchemy is holding both long enough to produce integration. What Jung called the conjunctio, the sacred marriage. So now we're going to go into the toxic masculine, toxic feminine, and integration with 7 examples through alchemy, integration versus control. Toxic masculinity examples: my way or none, control in relationships, emotional suppression in men who refuse to feel, exploitation of workers for profit, law and punishment used without compassion, cold rationalism rejecting empathy, religious legalism suffocating spirit, and managers crushing creativity in workplaces. Toxic feminine, chaos with no structure, guilt as manipulation, victim identity to avoid responsibility, endless drama cycles in relationships, over-nurturing adults into dependency, smothering children so they can't individuate, sexuality used as manipulation. 7 examples of integration through alchemy. Couples blending financial planning with emotional care, leaders who balance deadlines with empathy, parents teaching discipline and emotional expression, workplaces honoring both data and intuition, spiritual practices combining ritual with openness, communities setting firm but compassionate boundaries, and individuals balancing productivity with self-care. Now we're going to go into Jung's stages and cultural cycles. Every myth begins in descent. Gilgamesh seeks immortality. Christ descends into the tomb. Inanna enters the underworld. Alchemy called this Negredo, the blackening, the chaos. Then came albedo, purification, rubedo, the sacred marriage, and finally the stone, integration, which is gold. Historically, civilizations followed this arc. Rome collapsed into Negredo, the Middle Ages purified with faith, albedo, the Renaissance birthed rubedo, art, science, and rebirth. But in modernity, we fear collapse so deeply that we suppress it with medication, distraction, or denial, never completing the cycle. Scientific frame. Stress destabilizes old neuro pathways. Negredo neuroplasticity allows new learning. Albedo integration produces resilience. Rubedo, stone, collective trauma either fragments societies or catalyzes renewal. Ancient peoples ritualized this process, vision quest, initiations, and fasting. They allowed collapse, then renewal. But modern culture pathologizes crisis, seeing depression or breakdown as failure rather than initiation. Without Negro, we stagnate in shadow. Integration means recognizing descent as part of transformation, not as defeat. Toxic masculine examples: war and conquest destroying balance, humiliating leadership styles, fathers emotionally absent, politicians obsessed with domination, cruelty rationalized as strength, zero-sum competition, science weaponized for harm, toxic femininity, collapse into despair and victimhood, gossip tearing apart communities, passive-aggressive sabotage, perpetual victim identity, over-nurturing adults into helplessness, drama cycles controlling relationships, and neglect disguised as care. Integrated examples: men embracing vulnerability as courage, women setting boundaries with kindness, couples resolving conflict as growth, leaders combining clarity with care, families balancing discipline and warmth, cultures renewing through justice and art, individuals integrating shadow with light. Now we're going to move into native wisdom as antidote. Picture a circle drawn in sand, stones for directions, elders gathered around fire. The drumbeat sinks hearts, the medicine wheel teaches. The north represents wisdom, the south, trust, the east, vision, and the west, introspection. Masculine and feminine spiral together across all directions. Historically, indigenous societies built family and law around this. Warriors defended, clan mothers chose leaders, ceremonies honored balance. Colonization shattered this, outlawing ceremonies, stripping women of clan authority, sending children to boarding schools. The wheel was broken, balance inverted. Scientific frame. Ecology thrives on predator-prey balance. Attachment theory shows children need both masculine protection and feminine nurture. Indigenous lifeways that's a weird one. Operationalize. There we go. Geez. Indigenous lifeways operationalize this daily. When the wheel was intact, ecosystems stayed balanced. Children grew resilient, and justice was restorative. Colonization disrupted this. Patriarchal governance replaced clan mothers, resources became property, families were torn apart. Today, restoring indigenous wisdom means not just heritage recovery, it's reactivating the biology of balance itself. Toxic masculine examples here: overhunting beyond need, ignoring wisdom of clan mothers, silencing elders, fathers abandoning family roles, violence without honor, breaking treaties, and male councils excluding women. Toxic femininity here: shaming instead of teaching, manipulating chiefs emotionally, neglect while demanding others nurture, fear-driven avoidance of conflict, betrayal for false security, enabling destructive male power, and hoarding wisdom for control. Integrated balance: warriors protecting land, clan mothers guiding justice, ceremonies restoring balance, elders teaching firm compassion, children raised by community, families honoring complementary roles, and resources shared with reciprocity. So now we're going to go into section 5, false alchemy, religion, occult, and government control. Walk into a medieval cathedral. Incense, stained glass, and chants. Beauty on the surface, but control beneath. Confession demanded, purity policed, obedience enforced. The feminine reduced to virgin or temptress, the masculine exalted as authority. Historically, rituals of integration, confession, initiation, and marriage were inverted into systems of obedience. Governments declared themselves fathers. Occult elites hoarded polarity knowledge for manipulation. True alchemy was twisted into false control. Lefton's 8 marks of thought reform. Milieu control, purity demands, confession cycles, sacred science, loaded language, doctrine over person, dispensing of existence. Neuroplasticity explains why repetition cements obedience. True ritual frees, false ritual enslaves. The same psychological mechanisms, confession, discipline, community, either heal or bind, depending on intention. Religion, government, and occult distorted polarity. Masculine became domination, and feminine became submission. Integration was replaced by inversion. Toxic masculine examples: militarized states, mass surveillance, patriarchal suppression of women, leaders gaslighting citizens, corporate exploitation, law without mercy, and weaponized science. Toxic feminine examples: welfare dependency cycles, infantilization of citizens, cancel culture as perpetual shaming, safety used to erase freedom, emotional hysteria weaponized, victimhood turned into currency, and gossip-driven media. Integration examples: governments protecting rights, not replacing families, leaders serving people, not ruling them, families as sacred foundation, media telling truth with empathy, religions honoring both archetypes, communities balancing compassion with accountability, and science guided by ethics. And then we have section 6. I'm gonna have to adjust myself here. All right, Gnosticism, Marxism, and simulation. A lush garden fades into pixels. Birds become hashtags. Repeat the spell enough and the digital copy feels more real than life. Historically, Gnostics taught that body equals prison, serpent equals liberator. Marxism declared labor creates man, society replaces God, equity replaces excellence. Today's digital culture repeats these mantras endlessly in the metaverse, hyper-reality, and curated feeds until truth is replaced by simulation. Illusionary truth effect. Repetition makes lies feel true. Hyperreality, copies replace originals. Neuroscience, imagined experiences build neuropathways similar to lived ones. The hatred of creation reappears through history. Religious sects calling Earth a prison, political ideologies replacing family with state, technology replacing reality with simulation, masculine clarity devolves into ideology, feminine compassion devolves into guilt culture. Integration requires grounding in body, nature, and community. Toxic masculine examples: dictators silencing dissent, technocracy dominating life, over-centralized power, law without compassion, cruelty framed as order, destruction of families, and tyranny disguised as rationalism. Toxic feminine examples: censorship for safety, victim identity as permanent label, emotional guilt culture, infantilizing citizens, equity flattening excellence, gender erased into confusion, collectivism denying individuality. Integrated examples: equity with excellence, compassion with accountability, families honored, dignity respected, science guided by ethics, technology supporting life, and governments fostering responsibility. Dialectic versus dialectical inversion. Two rivers converge, creating fertile valleys. That's dialectic, opposites uniting into synthesis. Now imagine a dam blocking both rivers, declaring this is the real river. That's inversion. Historically, dialectic birthed growth. Socratic dialogues, Hegel's synthesis, Jung's integration. Inversion became weapon, patriarchy demonizing women, feminism demonizing men, politics trapping us in endless polarity wars. Scientific frame. Dialectic thinking builds integrative complexity, capacity to hold opposites and synthesize truth. Inversion flips polarities but forbids synthesis, keeping society divided. True dialectic burrs unity. Inversion keeps us stuck in endless opposition. Masculine versus feminine, left versus right, science versus spirit. Control systems thrive on this division. Integration asks, can both be true, and what emerges when they unite? Toxic masculine examples of this: domination is strength, tyranny is leadership, rule by fear, suppression of love, over-punishment, cruelty rationalized, and my way or nothing. Toxic feminine examples: victimhood as identity, entitlement disguised as compassion, manipulation via emotions, denial of truth for comfort, smothering as care, endless grievance cycles, and nothing matters relativism. Integrated examples: strength as service, compassion with accountability, families balancing nurture and structure, leaders embodying justice and mercy, partners transforming conflict into growth, societies honoring polarity, cultures holding opposites until synthesis. Real alchemy doesn't erase polarity. It transforms it. When masculine and feminine are distorted, families fracture and cultures decline. But when they are integrated, families thrive, cultures flourish, spirituality awakens, and Earth herself stabilizes. You are a microcosm of the Logos. Balance your inner currents, and you help heal the whole river of humanity. It is just so sad what has gone on in culture, the erasure of culture in the last 100 years even. When our culture falters, you have a literal collapse of society itself, and we are certainly headed there. This masculine and feminine integration within ourselves is important, but you need to also look at it on a macro level. I hope this video helped tie in a lot of things for you. I hope that it has triggered you to study into different things you've never looked into before. And I might expand this out, I might not. I have like 35 videos right now that I would love to do. So I'm going to sit here and think about things, and I may extend this a little bit more, but who knows? Anyways, if you did enjoy this, please like and subscribe. Feel free to email and comment. Certainly comment if you have any thoughts, feelings, realizations on this topic. I truly would appreciate it. I sit here and have thought about these things my entire life, and I combine not just astrology with psychology. I combine many different religions, many different cultures. I love to zoom out and look at everything as a whole, as much as I love to zoom in to the planets and cognitive functions with each personality type. I certainly enjoy bridging science with spirituality. That is kind of like my slogan here, bridging science with spirituality. I definitely feel like a bridge between many different worlds, and I certainly hope that that can be a thing for all of us, because we certainly need to be digging our heels into the sand and fighting and being a true leader in our own lives, in our own families, in our own parenting, in our own communities, in our own work environment, in our own lifestyle. Every single part of our lives matters on an individual level as well as a collective level. The age of Aquarius, it's all about the collective, being very in tune with the collective and being able to communicate that, but also still be an individual, understanding that individuality is still important as much as the collective. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for your time.